What's up, guys? Welcome to the Kingdom Men Transfer Man Nation podcast, brought to you by our sponsor, the Acquisition CEO. They specialize in business acquisitions, whether you want to buy a business or sell a business. And today I've got a really good friend of mine on the podcast, Tyler Woodall. Tyler, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do to earn a paycheck.
Yeah, man. So essentially my business is C4 Solutions / Agency Aid, depending on what you do. So we staff virtual assistants for businesses around the U.S. A big piece of what we do is working with insurance agencies. I used to be in the insurance space, so all the standard operating procedures I built, we implement that in other agencies. But we also do it for real estate agents, roofers, CPAs, stuff like that, whoever needs help hiring and staffing.
All the admin stuff. Sum up for us real quick. What's a virtual assistant do? Because a lot of people there, they hear that word and they're like, oh, that sounds so foreign, but it's becoming such a common thing in business and entrepreneurship, and actually even necessary thing as people get busier, being able to offload some of those admin support tasks.
It's just a virtual employee. So it's somebody that works for your business that's doing the tasks you need, but just not in the office. For us, it looks like a lot of times we're hiring out of the Philippines, Latin America, other places where the dollar goes further. So you're getting some economies of scale there. You can potentially get somebody with a higher level, a bachelor's or a master's, but for less than what you're paying here. They're ecstatic to get the work. They're really hardworking. They're excited. And you're getting to save a little bit of money. So
no, a lot of people, I think they confuse the idea of virtual with some sort of online robot AI thing. And, and it's not that. It's an actual person who you can train and assign tasks to, who can kind of come to you in your business and partner with you. And you basically subcontract those services to other business owners.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep, 100%.
So how long ago, this is the interesting part. I want to encourage people that are out there being entrepreneurs and starting businesses. It doesn't take that long. Tyler's been in entrepreneurship his whole life. Your dad was in business, and Tyler set out to do his own thing. But how long have you had this business in place?
We started at February of last year, so we're at 12 months now.
Okay, so you've been at it for 12 months. And how many people are in your organization?
We've got about 75 people now.
About 75 people in the organization, running like a sewing machine. So Tyler obviously is smart and pays attention to SOPs and processes and that kind of stuff in order to take something from nothing and build it to a team of 75 people in another country in 12 months.
Right.
So a lot of people, they use words like, oh, I can't, or I don't know how. How did you overcome those challenges? Like when people say those things, like, I don't even know what a virtual assistant is, or all the limitations they put on themselves. How do you overcome that kind of stuff?
So the way that I got into it is kind of a long story. So I was running my insurance agency, and the same struggles that every entrepreneur faces, I was in the middle of. Like, we were growing, I needed help, but I didn't know what to do. And so a friend of mine had an eBay / Amazon store. He had virtual assistants doing stuff for him. He was like, look, I bet you could hire somebody to help you. And it was just a limiting belief. I was like, I don't think somebody could run quotes for me or do my customer service.
So you had the same limiting belief about virtual assistants that everybody else does, because I tell people about you all the time, and they're like, oh, that I don't understand. And so you were even in the same boat. So limiting beliefs, didn't know what he was doing, built a 75-people organization. Keep going with that story.
So I started spending from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. recording videos, documenting my business. So I wrote down what's everything we do in our agency. We run homeowners quotes. Now that's running a homeowners quote in Travelers, Progressive, Safeco, running car insurance quotes with all the different carriers. And so every day I would just record a few videos showing how to do those tasks. 150 videos later.
150. So there's a little bit of, I was thinking about something funny today. A lot of people, they're not committed long enough, right, in entrepreneurship. They quit too soon. 150 videos. Okay, keep going with the story.
And these videos are like 5 to 10 minutes long. So I feel bad for everybody that went through our initial training, because it was 40 hours of me talking about insurance.
Right.
Like, it had to suck. I wouldn't want to do that.
So you had this idea you were going to teach what you had mastered in your insurance agency to other people, and you had this weird idea about VAs. And so you started recording 100, and you made 150 videos, and you were selling a course kind of on SOPs to insurance companies?
We used that to train VAs for myself first.
Gotcha.
So I needed help. So I used all these videos, trained a girl, Jane, on how I want quotes ran, how I want customer service tasks handled. And she started doing it for me first. And I was so adamant I didn't want to work with insurance agents.
Right.
I don't know if it was a limiting belief, but I just thought that this is a competitive advantage for me. And I don't want everybody else to get this.
That's so funny.
But I'm also never going to sell a policy in California. So why not help somebody in California by doing what I'm doing?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing is the limiting beliefs that we tell ourselves, or we think there's competition. Like a lot of people are like, oh, man, the other real estate agents, the other insurance guys, the other roofers, the other contractors, the other landscape, they're not competition. We all do things a little bit different. And God made us all unique and made us to do different things. So I think there's a lot of power and truth in that people aren't your competition. Typically, we are our own competition. And that's a limiting belief. That could have kept you from even building a VA company, right? You could have stopped right there, but you didn't, and you're like, I screwed that limiting belief, and you kept trucking.
Yep. So, and it was really necessity. So you know a little bit about it. Like last February was kind of like the start of a quarter life crisis for me.
Right.
And enough people had been asking me to help with insurance VAs. I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. Let's try and get 5 clients. I got 5 real fast, and it just kept going from there.
How many clients do you have now?
We have about 50 insurance agencies we work with, and that's about 80% of our revenue. So I don't even know how many of the others, but
all the other stuff.
Some are in the
so you built a team, you worked on some leadership skills, you eliminated some limiting beliefs on yourself, and you built a pretty successful, simple business within 12 months. And that's one of the things I want people to get out of this podcast that are listening is that business doesn't have to be complicated. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we think we've got to reinvent a new thing or a new widget, or we've got to come up with this complex idea when really the key to entrepreneurship is just solving problems, right? You figure out how to solve problems effectively, and you find people that want to pay you for what you've learned and figured out, and then you pair the two together through a simple sales process, and you get to earn a paycheck as the guy in the middle. And I think that's so cool. A lot of people, they just misunderstand the whole concept of entrepreneurship and even building an organization. Because you have a CEO, COO.
Yeah, I've got a COO. I've got an HR manager, onboarding coordinators. Like I could not do any of this without my team. They're awesome.
So you have a whole team of people.
Yep, exactly.
That's so cool and lesson here. I'm fascinated by that. Was Jane the VA that I ended up with that like sold her laptop?
No, it wasn't. Jane was a rock star. I kept her fiercely just for myself. Okay. Eventually, she transitioned into training a lot of our people. I got you. I don't remember who it was.
I don't remember who that was. That was an interesting, weird experience. And so you hit or miss, right? Sometimes. Yep. So I still believe in VAs, and it's a great service. And I would encourage you, Tyler. What's your website? They could hit you up on
winwithc4.com, or you could go to agency-aid.com.
And you're on YouTube, right? What's your YouTube channel?
I think it's just Tyler Woodall.
Right, Tyler Woodall. Check him out on YouTube, all that kind of good stuff. So let's talk about some additional hard things that you've overcome, because Tyler's been through some personal challenges just in life. So another thing I want to talk about on this podcast is just overcoming all the things in life. That's why I do what I do for a living, to help entrepreneurs overcome the challenges and just learn to be effective and efficient and also make money. But like life comes knocking, right? And so recently you had a tough breakup.
Yep.
We'll talk about that here in a second. But also last year, Tyler decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Yep. There's I think there's 7,000 people on the planet that have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro out of 7.5 billion people. What made you want to be like, man, I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? We've been friends for a few years, and it wasn't like, oh man, next year I'm going to prep for this. What happened in life that made you go, I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro?
So it had been a dream for a while. It had been on my life bucket list that I wanted to go climb Kilimanjaro. Yeah. And it just kept sitting there and not getting done. So I kind of alluded to it earlier. Last February, I had to put down my dog, ended a 2.5-year relationship, decided I was going to change things, sold my insurance agency. I reevaluated what I wanted life to look like. Mm-hmm. And through that process, started my business. Life started to change, started to get some freedom back in my time. But I was listening to a podcast, actually, with James Sexton, and he was talking about don't tiptoe through life to arrive safely at death.
Oh, man, that's so
and
good.
I heard that,
that's a golden nugget.
I was like, oh, my gosh. And I was actually at a Chick-fil-A on a Saturday looking at flights. I just happened to pull up Google Flights, and the flights to Kilimanjaro had massively dropped. It went from like 1,500 to 580.
And you're like, book it.
Yeah, so I called my guide that I'd been chatting with in Kilimanjaro. I was going to do it the following year, so this year. And I messaged him. I said, hey, there's a flight in 6 days that's pretty cheap. If I come out there, can you take me up in a week?
Let's talk about that real quick, because I want the audience to really capture what happened here. You had this idea in your head that was kind of festering in the back of your mind, and you were sitting in a Chick-fil-A, and what I want people to take away from this is life is just not as complicated as we make it. A lot of times we talk ourselves out of great opportunity going, oh, we got to have a perfect game plan, everything's got the stars have to align, but usually it's quite the opposite. So you're sitting in a Chick-fil-A and you see the flights and you're like, it's dropped. You hit the guy up, which he loves us all on Instagram, by the way. That guy's solid. If you want to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro, what's his name? We'll give him a shout out.
His name's Sam. It's like Samuel Cabos or something like that on Instagram.
So if you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, we can hook you up with the guide.
He loves it.
And but you're sitting there in 6 days, you're like, hey, I have not really prepped necessarily to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but if I book a flight and I show up, can we do it? And so, again, just in life, folks, like, life's not complicated. Do the things that you want to do and then just figure them out as you go. We grow a lot through the journey of life instead of perfection paralysis screws a lot of people out of cool stuff.
Yep. Done's better than perfect.
Hey, man, I'm with you. That's good stuff. And you wanted to slide in sideways. So keep going with the story. You booked the flight.
Yeah, so 6 days later, I am on a flight to Ethiopia, then into Tanzania, and get off the plane. I had, like, during that period, I start reading, what do I have to buy? Right. So I bought all the stuff, and I was ready, and I did a lot of reading. I watched probably 15 YouTube videos from people that did it.
YouTube University is a great education. I hope everybody follows me in this podcast and my channel on YouTube and gets some stuff out of this. So if you're doing things, like, again, just get out there and research. Like, don't wait on somebody to come along. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to call you and be like, hey, you want to climb? I mean, our group of friends might call you and be like, hey, you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? But that's not par for the course.
Yep.
And it's also super fun because it's not, you said Tanzania. Where was it?
It's in Tanzania.
Ethiopia and Tanzania. It's not like you were like, I'm going to go hike the Blue Ridge Parkway. No, you like jumped on a plane and went to another country.
Yep. So it was awesome. So basically get with my guide. We have a guide, all the guys carrying our stuff, and then this dude from Wales, Michael. And it was just us walking up this mountain. And it was a 7-day trip. Incredibly challenging on the summit day. Up until then, it wasn't bad. We camped at 15,000 feet, and the altitude just wrecked us. So we had been walking pretty fast all week. Michael and I are both young, so we were flying by everybody. And our guide was like, we're going to sleep in the morning. Most people are going to start leaving between 11 and 12 p.m. We're going to start walking close to 2. And so sure enough, at like 1:50, we start walking up this mountain. And you look up, it's pitch black. Everybody's got these headlamps on.
Is this AM or PM?
AM.
Okay.
And so I wake up, I look at my watch in my tent. My heart's at 135 beats per minute. Haven't even gotten out of my sleeping bag yet.
So that's pretty fast.
Yeah. So I had some type of virus. Like, I had a fever every morning when I got up. And so put on 5 layers of clothes. It's below 0. It's like -20 when we're hiking up this mountain. And so you look up and you can see pockets of headlamps all the way up this hill, which honestly,
kind of a cool memory.
It was wild. And I had pictured this thing so many times in my head, like going up this mountain, that it was surreal.
Yeah. But there you are.
It works out nice that it's so dark because it sucks.
Right. You can't see.
It's straight up, and every step you take, your foot's sliding back in the dirt. And so it's just so difficult. Your water freezes when you're an hour and a half up because it's -20. So -20,
you got a fever.
Yeah. And so I had this water bottle, a 2-liter bottle of water, flipped upside down because water freezes top down. So it flips upside down in 2 wool socks in my backpack to try and like delay it freezing. So I have a little bit of water, but my camelback's frozen. But when you look up, all you see are little pockets of headlamps. So you don't know how much further you have to go. So I would see one group in front of us, and I'd be like, that's it. As soon as I get there, it's going to flatten out. Well, then we would pass that group, and it just kept on going. But in my mind, that's how I did it. I kept playing that game. Okay, all I got to do is get to that group, and it's going to get easier.
But I think that's the way in life and business and sobriety and all those kind of things. It's like, hey, if I could just get right there, if I could just get right there, if I could just get right there. And if you just kind of keep that mindset going inside of your head, I tell people all the time, it's step by step, day by day, brick by brick. So it's kind of funny how that was.
And it honestly worked out well because 45 minutes in, I was thinking, I'm ready to quit. This sucks. My back hurts so bad. Like, I was dehydrated. And we had 5.5 more hours to go.
Right,
it's
so
6 hours that
You're 45
morning.
Minutes in, and you're like, I'm done. And you got 5.5 hours to go.
Luckily, I didn't know how much further we had.
Right, they're
so
not
I just
going to
kept
tell
telling
you.
myself it's not that much further.
You're like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
So eventually we got up to the top, got to see the sunrise over Africa, and it was incredible.
That's crazy.
Would not trade it for the world. It has made me a more valuable and interesting person because that's what opens the conversation now with people. They're like, hey, I saw you on social media. I see your videos. did you climb Kilimanjaro?
Hey, where were you?
Yeah, exactly. And so that has been awesome. But it also just taught me about overcoming adversity.
Right.
It's like TMI, but dude, I was peeing blood for 3 days afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, I was super messed up. My kidneys were jacked.
It hurt.
Yeah, and it was worth it. Like, I saw what I could do and overcome, so it was incredible.
And that's pushed you even further. I remember, I think it was before that we started talking, and you started walking because you were you weren't out of shape, but you didn't exercise there for a period of your life, and now you're like walking 7 miles a day. You get bored, and I love walking. I think that there's a lot of power in just being outside and thinking and listening and getting your thoughts together. There's a book called 3 Mile an Hour God, I think.
Tell me about it.
And so taking a walk is a good thing, but that totally shifted your mindset, which now you're like, well, if I can do that, what else can I do?
Yep.
I think overcoming hard things really drives people to that next step in life. I'm going to have a guy on here in a couple months. His name's Steve, and he swam 28 miles between 2 islands in the open ocean. And I watched that documentary, and I'm like, man, he swam for 13 hours in the open ocean through like 10-foot waves. And I'm sitting there thinking, and we complain because it's too cold, it's too hot, it's too hard. And again, that just reminds me, it encourages me, and I want to encourage others. At the entrepreneurship journey, people are like, oh, it's too hard. It's not too hard. You just don't want it bad enough.
Right.
You wanted to see that sunrise. You had this vision in your head that you were going to go there and you were going to do this thing. And while it may have been hard, it may be hard, but it's not impossible. Like, you build a business with 75 members on your team in 12 months. It may have been hard, may have been weird, may have taken a lot of commitment, but it wasn't impossible.
Right.
And it's things like that. It's really working through the impossible that sets us free and sets us apart.
And the confidence that comes with that too.
Right.
Like
knowing
Alex
that knowing that you can go through that.
Hermosi talks about the key isn't standing in front of a mirror and yelling affirmations at yourself.
Right.
It's standing there with a stack of receipts behind you. So as you do hard stuff, it encourages you can do other hard things.
Yeah.
So
no, it's so true. And then you find other hard things to do.
Right.
Or you want to see what else you're capable of. I think that's such a fun thing. And it's such a great reminder in business and entrepreneurship, because there are days when you don't necessarily have all the answers, or you don't have it figured out, or it definitely doesn't go as planned, or cash flow's different, or people quit, or people are tough, or marketing, or somebody had something to say, or a Google review. So there's always hard things. I think about that when I do cold plunges. I literally, like my tank, I tell myself, I'm like, it's just cold water. That's all it is. Like,
it's funny.
It's just cold water. If you can't do that, then what else can you do? But once you start to conquer that, you're like, it's just cold water, or it's just sitting in the sauna for a while, or it's just being sober another day. It's just these things. I literally tell myself that now. I'm like, it's just cold water. That's all it is. Like, even in business and having a hard conversation, or you got to do a weird negotiation thing or have a tough conversation, it's just cold water. Like, it's just a conversation.
It's awesome.
Nothing's coming out of that. It's just a hike. It's just another 10 minutes. Yep. And so what's the next hard thing that you're looking at doing? I know we talked a little bit about that. You're on the hunt.
Yeah, I really am. Even that night, like night 6 of Kilimanjaro, we'd hiked for 15 hours that day. And I was laying in my tent like, what's next?
But oxygen depletion because the air's thinner, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so 15 hours of not like walking through the mall.
It was rough.
Yeah.
It was not fun. But
pee and blood.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was incredible. So I don't know. I've played around with like doing an Ironman. I've chatted with some buddies about that. We'll see. That's going to be a whole nother set of challenges.
So did that come into play? Let's talk about something real recent for you. Exiting another relationship. We gotta help you avoid those somehow. They seem to come. I am open to coaching. They come and they knock you out, and you're like down for the count. You know, the one 2.5 years ago or whatever, and then this one too. Like we gotta put a filter on a dating. So we're gonna hire you a dating VA.
It's not a bad idea.
I'm just kidding. We're gonna have an application process. I'm just messing. But doing those hard things, did at any point in that recently when you're going through these things in your head and your emotions, and it's a little bit different because it's a personal connection.
Yep.
But did those moments when you were walking up Mount Kilimanjaro come into play and you think, man, if I can do that, I can get through this? Or did you continue to fall into some deeper depression, or how did all that kind of correlate and play out inside of your head?
Honestly, the way I've combated this is just people. Like, I'm so much of a people person, and I've got some incredible friends. You, Cameron, like a bunch of dudes have just like blown my phone up. And healthy or not, I pour myself into work a lot.
Sure.
So a lot of it's just distraction, and ultimately I get better through it. But maybe you kind of run from your problems a little bit.
I think we all do. I was telling you that the other day. I was like, hey, man, don't forget to think about realignment with God and our Creator. Don't just pick something else up to be busy. Because what happens a lot of times in life is, like, we're flying around in the plane and the alarms are going off, and we just kind of hit the silent button. And then, like, the right engine explodes, and we're like, I just won't look at it. And then the left engine explodes, and the whole time the plane's crashing, we know it's going down, but we're still flying the plane when really what we ought to do is we just got to get off the plane.
Right.
And then sometimes we get on another plane that's crashing. And so, yeah, that's a good point,
I had that conversation with a mentor probably a week ago, and we were talking about how do you define success? Because so much of how you define your world is how you're going to feel. And so I was like, I think I feel like I'm playing the wrong game. I was going after money because that's what everybody talks about and everybody wants. And he's like, well, would another million make you feel any better right now? I was like, no. Honestly, like I feel empty, and I'm making more than I know what to do with at the moment. Right. And like, it's been incredible having this team because while I've been dealing with my stuff, trying to figure it out, they've been running the show for me. Like, they've taken care of me. So I've had time to think and reflect and feel, and none of the money made it any better. Yeah. None of the success made it any better. So it really does come down to defining success and what you want life to look like.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. A lot of people in our circle, including myself, have been fortunate enough to make some really good money. But even in that, even in those days and times, I was lost emotionally and mentally. I didn't want to feel my feelings, right? So I was escaping my feelings through being addicted to work and drinking and all those kind of things. And my plane was crashing enough to a point where I was like, I don't like where I'm going. Like, I don't want to. This is not where I want to end up. And so for me, I had to learn how to feel my feelings. And I think like success for me is being powerfully present, right? Being present with my daughter, being present with my wife, being present with my friends, and being able not to think about like yesterday or tomorrow. I heard somebody one time, and I have it on my shirts, fear isn't real. We get so afraid about the past, and we get so afraid about the future, and we get afraid of being alone, or we get afraid of having to feel our feelings. And so we fill those voids with other things instead of just looking them straight on and saying, hey, okay, this is a problem. I'm going to deal with it. And that really comes from being honest with ourselves,
right? Which
is hard because everybody wants to ride around going, I'm good. I got the job. I got the business. I got the team. I got the money. I got the car. I got the girl, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And you feel good temporarily because we put our feelings in the wrong place.
Right.
I've done a lot of that. Like putting my feelings and hope in the wrong place.
Right.
And that's when I had to get back in alignment with God and my Creator and renew that relationship just because I was going down a road. But I was in a broken place. I was in a bad spot. And it hurt.
I think great friends are a key there because our buddy Max has been pointing out my blind spots through all this and calling me out.
He's like a spotter.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of crap that in our own lives that we want to ignore. A lot of times you need somebody else that can help point it out. Somebody that you trust enough.
Yes. Somebody that actually cares about you.
Right.
Well, Max's YouTube channel is The Landfather. You should check that out.
Hilarious.
He's hilarious on YouTube. Totally different than his business personality, so I love that. But I'll tell you that I was thinking about that earlier today about people who care about you won't let you to continue to crash your plane. A lot of people, they want to encourage us, hey, man, let's go get drunk. Let's go get rowdy. Let's do those things. And it sounds fun. But our real friends, they look at us and they go, "Hey, man, maybe we ought to pull each other out of this thing together." Because it's like quicksand, and what we consume consumes us. Even the bullshit in life,
right?
And if we consume too much of that, eventually it just takes us over in our mindset, and those things eat us. And that's, I think, why people ride the cycle of success instead of they're up here, they're successful. Then they're down here, and then they're back up here. And then they're back down here, and they're back up here. And instead of having kind of a straight line upward curve, and it's because they never get off that crazy train of life, right?
Right.
They never set their emotions aside, and they don't have a good group of people. They don't have a good core of friends to say, hey, man, I noticed you hadn't been posting on Facebook much. You post every day. Like, are you all right? Or hadn't seen you in the gym in a couple of weeks, or hadn't talked to you in a month or two. Like, what's up? You all right? It's funny how when we are down, we want to hide. Like, we want to get more down.
Yep.
We want to sulk in our feelings, and we don't want our friends to be like, hey, we're trying to pull you out of the ditch. Somebody the other day, Andrew Blackwell, have him on. Great guy, good friend of mine, hat tags guy.
Yep.
He's like, man, sometimes you just need somebody to help you pull the ox out of the ditch. And he says stuff like that. He's from like 1930 or something. He's funny. But I'm like, yeah, sometimes your best friends will help you pull your ox out of the ditch instead of being like, yeah, hey, let me jump in there with you.
Right.
I think that's a key thing in life. So if you had to give anybody listening to this kind of a key piece of advice, like I call them top tips, right? Whether that's personal or in business, what are a few things that you'd say, hey, if you're struggling, or hey, you're building a business, or hey, you need VA, whatever it may be, if something that comes to the top of your mind, what is the one thing that you would say, hey, guys, check this out. This is what Tyler Woodall would tell you. Here it is.
Yep. So it's a tip that I've kind of pulled from my dad. Start with the end in mind. And that's kind of how this business arrived. So I knew that I was stressed out. I knew I was miserable running my agency the way that I was. So I've got this 5-foot whiteboard in my office.
Yeah.
And I mapped out, what does my dream business look like? And then I went into, what does my dream life look like?
Mm-hmm.
So get very specific about, how much money do I want to make? How do I want to dress? Who do I want to talk to? Where do I spend my time? Where do I travel? Like all the things, and then back into it.
That's called vision, by the way. A lot of people, they can't see where they're going because they have no vision in life.
Right. And you talk about this all the time. It's just a math equation.
Yeah, it is.
So I mapped out, what does my ideal life look like? And then how much money do I need to make to pay for that?
Yeah.
And then you're going to be shocked how quick it happens if you make little steps on, okay, well, I need to add $500 here. I need to add $1,000 here. How quickly you can scale if it's just small little action items.
No, that's so huge. That's the way my first real estate coach actually taught me. He said the same thing. You start with the end in mind. And he had a piece of paper and a booklet, and we filled it out. And he's like, okay, what do you want to do this year? And I listed out things. He's like, okay, how much is that going to cost? And we did the math, and then we went from that, and we said, okay, this is how many, based on your close ratio, this is the number of appointments you need to set, this is the number of phone calls you got to make, this is the number of social media posts you got to make, this is the number of emails you got to send. We built a mathematical business plan, and then I just went to work every day until that was done, and that paid off, right? The math landed pretty close to where it was supposed to. And I think the cool thing about that is when you do that, it doesn't take that long.
Right.
Like it could be a year, it could be 2 years or 3 years, but if you stay in there and you have a defined process and a vision, like I always tell people, you got to have a GPS destination of where you want to arrive at. Like if you were going to drive to Walmart in Greenville, you're going to put in the city, the state, the zip code, the street number, the street name. It's very specific.
Right.
But in life, we say things like, I want to be successful. And we put no definition to it. Or I want to be in shape. Okay, what size pants do you want to wear? How much do you want to lift? How far do you want to run? And so we don't get real specific. And so once we do that and we get the clarity on that vision in life, it makes saying yes and no to things real easy.
That's cool.
And it makes the math real easy and our daily choices too. And that leads me to one of my favorite words. It's how we become effective.
Right.
And when you become more effective with your time and all of the choices you get to make in a day, you end up having extra time. That's how you go climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Right. Yep.
That's how you end up in a bad relationship. But that's how you get out of them too.
Exactly.
Right? You've got the time.
Yep.
And so, but if you didn't have the time, could you imagine? I remember going through my sobriety journey. Like, man, I couldn't imagine like having to go to work every day.
Right.
I'd be a mess.
I talked with my dad about that either yesterday or the day before because we were talking through like when my little brother passed away.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't imagine still having to go to work every single day, dealing with that grief.
Yeah.
And it would be rough. Like, I feel incredibly blessed to be where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It's awesome.
So,
well, I appreciate you being on today, Tyler.
Yeah, man.
Again, we want to give a shout out to the Acquisition CEO. If you want to acquire a business, sell a business, hit us up. We'll put you in touch with them. And we appreciate you. And thanks for being on the Kingdom Men Transfer Man Nation.
Enjoyed it.
See you.
Peace.